Jake Martinez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he guided his small mining ship through the asteroid field. The rocks here were old, older than most things in this part of space. His scanner beeped softly, showing him the way through the floating chunks of stone and metal. He had been working alone for 3 days now. The mining station, Kepler 7, was 2 hours away, but Jake liked the quiet out here. No bosses telling him what to do, no crowds of people, just him, his ship, and the endless black of space. The scanner beeped again, but this time it sounded different. Jake looked at the screen and frowned. There was something big inside one of the asteroids, something that did not belong there. Jake moved his ship closer to the asteroid. It was about the size of a small building, gray and covered with ice. But his scanner showed metal inside it. Lots of metal, all twisted together in a shape that looked almost like a person. What the hell? Jake said to himself. He had found strange things before, old ships, broken machines, chunks of alien metal. But this was different. This looked like it had been made by someone. Jake called the mining station on his radio. "Hey, this is Jake. I found something weird out here." The voice that answered belonged to Dr. Lisa Park, the scientist who studied old alien things. "What kind of weird, Jake?" "Big piece of metal inside an asteroid. Looks like it might be armor or something." There was silence for a moment. Then Lisa's voice came back, excited. "Don't touch anything, Jake. I'm coming out there with a team." Jake laughed. "I wasn't planning to touch it, Doc. I'm not stupid." But as he looked at the asteroid, he felt something strange, like the metal inside was calling to him. He shook his head and tried to ignore the feeling. 2 hours later, Lisa arrived with 3 other people. Captain Roy Stone was in charge of security at the station. Dr. Amy Foster studied alien minds. And there was a big guy named Steve Logan, who worked for Galactic Intelligence. They used special tools to cut open the asteroid. Inside they found what looked like a suit of armor, but it was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The metal was dark but seemed to glow with its own light. The armor was big, made for someone taller and stronger than a human. Strange symbols covered every piece. Lisa took pictures and scanned the armor with her machines. "This is incredible," she said. "I think this is Vorthak." Captain Stone looked worried. "Vorthak? Are you sure?" "The symbols match," Lisa said. "And look at the metal, it's not like anything we use today." Jake had heard stories about the Vorthak. They were an old race of warriors who had ruled part of the galaxy thousands of years ago. Then they disappeared. No one knew why. "If this is really Vorthak armor," Steve Logan said, "we need to be very careful. Other races have tried to use their stuff before. It never ends well." The next day, ships arrived from 3 different alien races. The Galactic Council had heard about the discovery and wanted to see it for themselves. The first ship carried a Zephyrian warrior named Click-Raz. The Zephyrians looked like giant insects with 4 arms and big black eyes. Click-Raz was one of their best fighters. The second ship brought an ethereal called Brightsong. The ethereals were made of living crystal and could change the shape of their bodies. Brightsong sparkled like a diamond in the light. The third ship carried a Drakmor warrior named Scarfang. The Drakmor looked like walking lizards, with scales and sharp teeth. Scarfang was 7 feet tall and covered in battle scars. All 3 aliens looked at the armor with hungry eyes. They had all heard the legends. Vorthak armor could make a warrior almost impossible to kill. It could let someone survive in space without a suit. It could make weapons out of pure energy. Click-Raz stepped forward first. "I will try the armor," he said in his clicking voice. Lisa looked worried. "Maybe we should study it more first." But Captain Stone nodded. "Let him try. We need to know what this thing can do." Click-Raz reached out with one of his 4 hands and touched the armor. The moment his fingers made contact, he screamed. Blue lightning ran up his arm and through his body. He flew backward and hit the wall, then fell to the floor, twitching. Dr. Foster ran to help him. He's alive, but his nervous system is overloaded. Brightsong floated forward next. "Perhaps my crystalline structure will be more compatible," she said in her musical voice. She pressed her crystal hand against the armor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in her arm. The cracks spread up to her shoulder and across her chest. She pulled away quickly, but the damage was done. Part of her crystal body had turned black and dead. Scarfang growled and stepped up to the armor. "Drakmor are the strongest race in the galaxy," he said. "This armor will bow to me." He grabbed the armor with both hands and tried to lift it. The armor glowed brighter. Scarfang roared as an invisible force picked him up and threw him across the room. He hit the wall so hard that he left a dent in the metal. The three aliens looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Clickraz was still shaking from the electric shock. Brightsong's crystal arm was cracked and dark. Scarfang had a huge bruise on his back. "The armor is cursed," Brightsong said. "It rejects all who try to wear it." "We should seal it away," Clickraz agreed. "Some things are too dangerous to use." But Jake was not listening to them. He was staring at the armor. The strange feeling was back, stronger than before. It felt like the armor was talking to him without words, like it was waiting for something. "Jake," Lisa said, noticing his expression, "stay away from that thing." But Jake was already walking toward the armor. He could not stop himself. His hand reached out, moving on its own. "Jake, no," Captain Stone shouted. Jake's fingers touched the dark metal of the armor, and everything changed. The moment Jake's fingers touched the armor, the metal felt warm. Not hot like fire, but warm like sunlight on skin. The dark surface began to glow brighter, and the strange symbols started moving across the metal like living things. Everyone in the room stepped back except Jake. He could not move. His hand was stuck to the armor like it was glued there. But he was not afraid. The warmth spread up his arm and into his chest. It felt good, like coming home after a long trip. "Jake, pull your hand away," Captain Stone shouted. But Jake could not hear him clearly. Other voices were speaking in his mind now, old voices that spoke in a language he had never learned but somehow understood. The armor began to change. Pieces of it moved and shifted, getting smaller. The chest piece that had been too big for any human was now the right size for Jake. The arm guard shortened. The leg pieces became thinner. The helmet grew smaller but kept its strange, fierce shape. "This is impossible," Dr. Lisa Park whispered. "The armor is changing itself." Jake felt his body moving without his control. He stepped closer to the armor. His other hand reached out and touched the chest piece. More warmth flowed through him. The voices in his head became clearer. The armor opened up like a flower. The back split apart, showing empty space inside. Jake knew what he had to do. He turned around and backed into the armor. The metal closed around him like water. First his legs, then his body, then his arms. Each piece fitted perfectly, like it had been made just for him. The armor was not heavy at all. It felt light as air, but Jake could feel the power inside it. The helmet was the last piece. It came down over his head slowly. For a moment, everything went dark. Then Jake's mind exploded with light and sound and memories that were not his own. He saw a great city made of gold and silver, floating in space around a blue star. Ships shaped like dragons flew between tall towers. Warriors in armor like his walked through gardens where strange plants grew in patterns that hurt to look at. He saw battles among the stars, fleets of ships fighting enemies that looked like living shadows. Warriors like him fighting creatures that had too many teeth and no eyes. He felt their courage and their fear and their love for their people. He saw the last battle. The enemy was different this time. They did not want to conquer or rule, they wanted to eat. They ate planets and stars and the space between them. They ate thoughts and dreams and the souls of entire races. The Vorthak warriors knew they were going to lose. But they had one hope. One suit of armor that was different from all the others. An armor that could learn and grow and wait. An armor that would find someone worthy when the time was right. Jake felt the memories fade, but the knowledge stayed. He knew how to fight now. He knew how to fly through space without a ship. He knew how to make weapons from pure energy. He knew things that no human had ever known. He opened his eyes and looked around the room. Everything looked different now. He could see heat patterns from people's bodies. He could hear their heartbeats. He could smell their fear. "Jake?" Lisa said carefully. "Are you okay?" Jake tried to answer, but his voice sounded different. Deeper and stronger. "I am fine, Dr. Park. Better than fine." He took a step forward and was surprised when the floor shook under his feet. He looked down at himself. The armor made him taller and broader. His hands were covered in metal that looked like claws, but when he thought about it, the claws pulled back and his fingers looked normal again. Click Raz, the Zephyrian warrior, made a noise like a scared insect. "How is this possible? The armor rejected us. It should have killed him." Jake looked at the alien and somehow knew everything about him. His real name, his fears, his fighting style, even what he had eaten for breakfast. The knowledge came from the armor, from memories of fighting Zephyrians long ago. "The armor did not reject me because I am not trying to conquer it," Jake said. "I am working with it." Brightsong, the crystal alien, stepped forward. Her cracked arm was still dark from touching the armor. "What do you mean working with it?" Jake thought about how to explain. The voices in his head whispered suggestions. "The Vorthak made this armor to choose its own user. It has been waiting for someone who could understand it. Someone who could be a partner, not a master." Scarfang, the big lizard warrior, growled, low in his throat. "You are just a human, a weak race that barely left its home planet. How can you succeed where we failed?" Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but it was not his anger. It was the armor's anger, remembering old battles against the Drakmor. For a moment, Jake saw red, his vision filled with thoughts of fighting, and winning and proving his strength. But then his human mind pushed back. He remembered who he was. Jake Martinez, salvage worker from Earth. Not a Vorthak warrior from 10,000 years ago. "I do not know why it chose me," Jake said honestly. "Maybe humans are different somehow. Maybe we are stubborn enough to work with something instead of trying to control it." Captain Stone had been quiet this whole time, but now he spoke up. "Jake, we need to run some tests. Make sure the armor is not hurting you." Jake nodded and started to take a step toward the captain. But he moved too fast. One moment he was across the room. The next he was standing right in front of Stone. Everyone jumped back in surprise. "Sorry," Jake said. "I am still learning how this works." Dr. Foster, the psychologist, looked worried. "Jake, how do you feel? Are you still you?" Jake thought about it. He could feel the armor's memories and knowledge in his mind, but they felt separate from his own thoughts, like having a library in his head that he could read from when he needed to. "I am still me," he said, "but I know things now, things about fighting and flying and—" He paused, listening to the whispers in his mind. "And about the enemies that are coming." Everyone froze. "What enemies?" Steve Logan, the intelligence officer, asked quickly. Jake closed his eyes and let the armor's memories flow through him. He saw darkness between the stars, things that moved in the empty spaces where no light could reach, things that were waking up because they had felt the armor turn on. "The ones the Vorthak were fighting when they died," Jake said. "The ones who eat everything. They have been sleeping, but now they know the armor is awake again." He opened his eyes and looked at each person in the room. "They are coming back, and we are not ready for them." In the silence that followed, Jake heard something else. A sound like breathing, but it came from everywhere and nowhere. The armor told him what it was. Something very big and very hungry had just woken up in the dark between the stars, and it was looking their way. 3 months had passed since Jake put on the Vorthak armor. The news had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every alien race wanted to see the human who could wear the ancient armor. Some were curious, some were afraid. Some were angry that a human had succeeded where their greatest warriors had failed. Jake had spent those months learning to use the armor. He could fly through space without a ship now. He could survive in the cold vacuum between planets. The armor made weapons from pure energy that could cut through the strongest metals. But the hardest part was learning to control the voices in his head. The Vorthak memories were always there, whispering to him. They told him how to fight, how to lead armies, how to destroy enemies. Sometimes Jake felt like he was losing himself in the ancient warrior's thoughts. Dr. Amy Foster helped him remember who he was, but it was getting harder each day. Then the attack came. The Caliph supremacy had always been trouble. They were a race of gray-skinned aliens who believed they should rule the galaxy. They had strong ships and good weapons, but they had never been brave enough to attack the peaceful races directly. Until now. The first target was the Novari colonies. The Novari were gentle people who looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin. They had no weapons and no armies. They grew food and made art and helped anyone who needed it. The Caliph ships appeared in their system without warning and began destroying everything. News of the attack reached the Galactic Council within hours. Admiral Kevin Price, the human representative, called an emergency meeting. Jake was there, wearing the armor that had made him famous across the galaxy. The Caliph have destroyed 3 Novari planets, Admiral Price said. Millions are dead. Our combined fleets are moving to stop them, but the Caliph have new weapons, ships that were supposed to be impossible to build. Jake listened to the reports and felt the armor's anger growing inside him. The Vorthak had protected the weak. They had fought against those who destroyed innocent people. The armor wanted to act. "Let me help," Jake said. The alien representatives looked at each other nervously. They still did not trust humans very much, and they feared Jake's power. But they were losing the war. "You are one person," said Commander Vextar, a Caliph who had broken away from the supremacy. "Even with that armor, you cannot fight an entire fleet." Jake stood up. The armor made him 7 feet tall now, and when he moved, everyone could feel the power in him. "I do not need to fight the whole fleet. I just need to fight the right ships." 2 days later, Jake was aboard the human ship, Defiance. Captain Maria Santos was in command, and she had picked the best crew she could find. They were heading to the Tau Ceti system, where the Caliph were attacking another Novari colony. Jake stood in the ship's cargo bay, preparing for battle. The armor had changed again over the past months. It was darker now, and the symbols on it glowed red instead of blue. Jake tried not to think about what that might mean. "Jake," Captain Santos called over the intercom, "we are arriving at the battle zone. Are you ready?" Jake walked to the airlock. Through the small window he could see the battle raging in space. Caliph ships, long and sharp like spears, were firing at Galactic Council vessels. The Council ships were losing badly. "I am ready," Jake said. The airlock opened and Jake stepped out into space. The first thing that hit him was the silence. In the movies, space battles were loud with explosions and weapons fire. But in real space, there was no sound at all. Just the cold and the dark and the distant stars. Jake activated the armor's flight system and shot toward the nearest Caliph ship. The armor's weapons came online automatically. Energy blades extended from his hands. A shield of pure force surrounded his body. The Caliph ship fired at him with everything it had. Laser beams, missiles, and plasma cannons all tried to stop him, but Jake moved like lightning, dodging between the attacks. The few shots that hit him were absorbed by his energy shield. Jake reached the ship's hull and drove his energy blades into the metal. The armor told him exactly where to cut to disable the ship's engines. Within seconds, the Caliph vessel was drifting helplessly in space. But there were dozens of other ships, and Jake could not be everywhere at once. He needed to think like a tactician, not just a warrior. The Vorthak memories whispered strategies to him, ideas for using the other ships in the battle. Jake opened a communication channel to all the Council ships. "This is Jake Martinez. I am sending you targeting data. When I mark a ship, hit it with everything you have." He flew between the Caliph vessels, marking their weak points with his armor's sensors. The Council ships, suddenly given perfect targeting information, began winning the battle. Every shot they fired now hit exactly where it would do the most damage. The tide of battle turned in minutes. The Caliph ships, which had seemed unstoppable, began to retreat. But Jake was not done yet. He flew after the largest Caliph ship, the one that had been leading the attack. It was trying to escape, but Jake was faster. He caught up to it and began tearing through its hull with his energy weapons. Inside the ship, he found the Caliph commander. The alien was tall and gray with black eyes and no hair. When he saw Jake, he fell to his knees. "Please," the commander said. "We surrender." Jake looked down at the alien and felt the armor's bloodlust rise in his mind. The Vorthak memories showed him what to do with enemies who killed innocent people. But Jake's human mind fought back. "Why did you attack the Novari?" Jake asked. The commander's eyes filled with fear. "We had to. The signals from the deep space sensors. Something is coming. Something terrible. We needed the ancient weapons to fight it." Jake felt cold suddenly. "What weapons?" "Vorthak artifacts. There are more pieces like your armor hidden across the galaxy. We thought if we could find them, we could prepare for what is coming." Jake's blood turned to ice. Through the armor, he could sense something moving in the dark spaces between stars. Something vast and hungry that had been sleeping for thousands of years. The same thing that had destroyed the Vorthak Empire. "The Devourers," Jake whispered. The Kaleth commander nodded. "Our deep space arrays detected them 3 months ago. They are coming back. All of them." Jake realized that the armor's awakening had been like lighting a signal fire in the dark. It had called to the ancient enemy, telling them that someone had found Vorthak technology. The things that had destroyed an entire empire were coming back to finish what they had started, and Jake had led them right to the galaxy's doorstep. Behind him, through the ship's windows, Jake could see the stars. They looked different now. Some of them seemed dimmer, as if something was passing in front of them. Something big enough to block the light of entire suns. The Devourers were no longer just coming. They were already here. The whispers had been getting louder for weeks. Jake could hear them even when he took the armor off now. Voices that spoke in languages older than human civilization. They called to him from the dark spaces between stars, promising power and knowledge and victory. Jake stood on the observation deck of the space station orbiting Earth. Through the thick glass, he could see his home planet turning slowly below. Blue oceans and green continents, white clouds swirling in patterns that looked almost like faces. It all seemed so small now, so fragile. "The nightmares are getting worse, aren't they?" Dr. Amy Foster asked behind him. Jake did not turn around. He had been avoiding people lately. The armor changed him more each day, and he was afraid of what others might see in his eyes. "They are not nightmares," Jake said quietly. "They are memories. Things that happened 10,000 years ago." Amy moved to stand beside him. She was brave, Jake thought. Most people were afraid to get too close to him now. Even his old friends looked at him like he was something dangerous. "Tell me about them," Amy said. Jake closed his eyes and let the memories flow. "I see the Vorthak homeworld burning, ships the size of cities falling from the sky, warriors in armor like mine fighting, creatures made of shadow and hunger, and I see the moment when they realized they could not win. What did they do? They ran. The greatest warrior race in the galaxy, and they ran like scared children. But it was not enough. The Devourers followed them. They ate entire star systems, leaving nothing behind but empty space and cold." Amy was quiet for a moment. Then she asked the question Jake had been dreading. "How much of you is still human, Jake?" Jake opened his eyes and looked at his reflection in the glass. The face looking back at him was still his own, but there were changes. His eyes were darker now, his skin was paler. When he smiled, his teeth looked sharper. "I do not know," he said honestly. Before Amy could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Over the intercom, a voice announced, "All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple unknown contacts approaching the system." Jake and Amy ran to the command center. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Bradley, Earth's military liaison, was standing in front of a huge display screen. The screen showed the solar system, with hundreds of red dots moving toward Earth from the outer darkness. "How many ships?" Jake asked. Tom's face was pale. "Our computers stopped counting at 1,000. They are bigger than anything we have ever seen. Some of them are the size of moons." "Jake, stared at the screen and felt the armor's knowledge flood his mind. He knew those ship designs. He had seen them in the Vorthak memories, long and black like enormous insects. No windows, no lights, just smooth metal that seemed to absorb light. Devourer ships, Jake whispered. Tom turned to look at him. You know what these things are? The armor knows, Jake said. They are not just ships, they are living things, part machine, part creature. They can think and learn and adapt, and they are very, very hungry. On the screen, the red dots were getting closer. The first wave would reach Earth's outer defenses in 6 hours. We need to evacuate the planet, Amy said. Tom shook his head. There is not enough time. We have maybe 1 billion people on evacuation ships, but that leaves 7 billion more. Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. The Vorthak memories showed him what happened to planets the Devourers visited. Nothing was left alive. Not plants, not animals, not even bacteria. Just gray dust and silence. We have to fight them, Jake said. With what? Tom asked. Our entire fleet has maybe 200 ships, they have thousands. Jake was quiet for a moment, listening to the voices in his head. The Vorthak memories were showing him something, a possibility he had not considered before. The armor, Jake said slowly. It can be copied. Everyone in the command center turned to look at him. What do you mean? Tom asked. The Vorthak did not have just one suit of armor. They had thousands, but they were all destroyed in the final battle. Except this one was different. It was designed to learn and adapt and reproduce itself. Dr. Rachel Turner, a scientist who had been studying the armor, stepped forward. You mean we can make more armor like yours? Not exactly like mine, Jake said, but close enough. The armor has been studying human biology for months. It knows how we work, how we think, how we fight. It can create new armor designed specifically for humans. Tom's eyes lit up. How many? Jake closed his eyes and asked the armor. The answer came back immediately. As many as we have people willing to wear it, but there is a catch. There always is, Amy muttered. The armor chooses its wearer, Jake said. It will not work for everyone. And those it does choose, they will change, like I have changed. Tom was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, he asked, how long do we have before those ships arrive? 6 hours, someone called from across the room. And how long to make the armor? Jake asked the armor again. If we use every factory on Earth and in the colonies, we can have 100 suits ready in 4 hours. Tom nodded grimly. Do it. Send out a call for volunteers. Tell them the truth about what they are signing up for, but do it fast. The next 4 hours were chaos. Factories across Earth and Mars began producing strange new materials under the armor's guidance. Scientists who did not understand what they were building followed instructions that came directly from Jake's mind to theirs. Meanwhile, volunteers lined up at military bases around the world. Jake had been honest about the risks. The armor would change them. It might drive them insane. It might turn them into something that was no longer human. But people came anyway. Soldiers and pilots and engineers. Farmers and teachers and doctors. People who had never held a weapon in their lives but were willing to die to protect their families. Jake tested each volunteer personally. The armor would glow when it found someone compatible. Out of every 10 people who tried, only one was chosen. But by the time the Devourer ships reached the outer solar system, Earth had 93 new armored warriors. Jake gathered them in a huge hangar on the moon. They looked strange in their new armor. Each suit was slightly different, adapted to its wearer's body and mind. Some were built for speed, others for strength. Some had weapons like his, others had tools for healing or communication. Among the new warriors was Kelly Wright, Jake's girlfriend from before the armor changed him. Her suit was silver and blue, and when she moved, she seemed to dance through the air. There was also Danny Clark, Jake's best friend, whose armor was built like a tank and could take enormous amounts of damage. Listen to me, Jake told the group. The things coming for us are not like any enemy humans have ever fought. They do not want to conquer us or rule us. They want to eat us. All of us. Every living thing on every world. He paused and looked at each face. Some were afraid. Some were excited. All of them were determined. The armor will help you fight, but it will also change you. Do not fight the change. Work with it. Let it make you stronger, but do not let it make you forget who you are. Kelly stepped forward. What about you, Jake? Are you still you? Jake looked at her and saw the concern in her eyes. He wanted to tell her yes, that he was still the same man she had fallen in love with. But he could not lie to her. I am becoming something else, he said. Something that can fight these creatures and maybe win. But I will try to remember the man I used to be. Outside the hangar, alarms began sounding again. The Devourer ships had reached Earth's orbit. It was time to fight. Jake led his small army of human warriors out into space. Behind them, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black. Ahead of them, 1,000 alien ships waited to devour everything they had ever loved. The final battle for humanity was about to begin. The battle began at dawn on Earth, though in space there was no real dawn or night. Jake led his 93 armored warriors toward the Devourer fleet. Behind them came every ship that Earth and the colonies could spare. It was not nearly enough. Tikal, Devourer ships were even more terrifying up close. Each one was miles long, covered in what looked like black skin instead of metal. As Jake's team approached, the ships seemed to notice them. Parts of their hulls opened like mouths, revealing rows of weapons that glowed with sick green light. Remember, Jake said over the radio to his warriors, do not try to fight them like human enemies. These things think differently. They move differently. Trust your armor to guide you. The first wave of Devourer weapons fire lit up space like a deadly fireworks show. Green beams that could melt through starship hulls reached out for the human warriors. But the armor made them fast, faster than any normal person could move. They danced between the attacks, getting closer to the enemy ships. Kelly was the first to reach a Devourer vessel. Her silver and blue armor let her slip through their defenses like water through cracks. She landed on the ship's hull and began cutting through it with energy blades. But when she broke through, something horrible reached out for her. It looked like a giant hand made of shadow and teeth. Kelly screamed as it grabbed her armor and began pulling her into the ship. But Danny Clark was there a second later, his tank-like armor smashing into the creature. Together, they fought their way back out. These things are not just ships, Kelly gasped over the radio. There are creatures inside them, living things that want to eat us. Jake was fighting his own battle on the largest Devourer ship. The armor's memories told him this was the command vessel, the brain that controlled all the others. If he could destroy it, the rest might retreat. But as he cut deeper into the ship, Jake realized something was wrong. The creatures inside were not trying to stop him. They were leading him somewhere. The armor's warning screamed in his mind, but it was too late to turn back. Jake found himself in a huge chamber at the heart of the ship. The walls were covered with what looked like veins, pulsing with green light. In the center of the room sat something that might once have been alive but was now something else entirely. It was huge, at least 20 feet tall, with skin that looked like old leather. Its face had too many eyes and a mouth full of teeth like broken glass. When it spoke, Jake could hear its voice inside his head. "Welcome, young warrior," the thing said. "I have been waiting to meet you." Jake raised his energy weapons, but the creature laughed. "You cannot hurt me with those toys. I am the Overmind, the first of the Devourers. I have lived since the stars were young." "You are the one who destroyed the Vorthak," Jake said. "I am the one who improved them," the Overmind replied. "The Vorthak were strong, but they were limited by their flesh. I freed them from that weakness." The chamber around them began to change. The walls became transparent, and Jake could see into other parts of the ship. What he saw made his blood freeze. There were Vorthak warriors inside the ship, hundreds of them still wearing armor like his. But they were not alive anymore. They moved like puppets, their eyes glowing with the same green light as the Overmind. "Didreen, you understand now?" the Overmind asked. The armor was never a weapon, it was a trap, a way to find the strongest warriors in the galaxy and make them mine. Jake felt the armor on his body growing heavier. The voices in his head, which had whispered Forthak memories for months, suddenly became louder. They were not memories at all. They were the Overmind's thoughts, slowly taking over his mind. "You fought well," the Overmind said. "You will make an excellent addition to my army." Jake tried to move, but his armor would not obey him anymore. The Vorthak symbols on his chest were glowing green now instead of red. He could feel his thoughts becoming fuzzy, his memories fading. But then he heard something else. Kelly's voice on the radio, calling his name. Danny's voice, asking for orders. The voices of all his human warriors, fighting and dying to protect their world. Jake remembered who he was. Not a Vorthak warrior from 10,000 years ago, not a puppet of the Overmind. Jake Martinez, salvage worker from Earth. A human being, who chose to help others. "You are wrong," Jake said, fighting against the armor's control. The armor was not just a trap, it was also a test. The Overmind's many eyes focused on him. "What do you mean?" "The Vorthak were not weak because they had flesh," Jake said. "They were weak because they forgot what they were fighting for. They became so focused on being strong that they stopped caring about protecting others." Jake thought about Earth, spinning blue and beautiful in space. He thought about all the people there who had never hurt anyone, who just wanted to live and love and build something good. He thought about Kelly and Danny and all the others who had put on armor to protect strangers they would never meet. The armor began to respond to him again, but not the way it had before. Now it was lighter, cleaner. The green glow faded and was replaced by something else. A warm golden light that came from Jake's own heart. "Humans are different," Jake said, standing up despite the Overmind's power. "We do not fight to prove we are strong. We fight to protect what we love." The Overmind snarled and reached for Jake with claws like swords, but Jake was ready. He did not fight like a Vorthak warrior now. He fought like a human. Not perfectly, not with ancient knowledge, but with hope and stubbornness, and the refusal to give up. Jake's energy weapons cut through the Overmind's claws. His armor shield deflected the creature's attacks, and slowly, step by step, Jake fought his way closer to the monster that had destroyed civilizations. "This is impossible," the Overmind screamed. "You are just one small creature on one small world. That is what makes us strong," Jake said, and drove his blade into the Overmind's heart. The creature exploded in a burst of green light. The ship around them began to shake and fall apart. But Jake was not done yet. He reached out with the armor's power and sent a signal to every Devourer ship in the fleet. The signal was simple. It told the enslaved Vorthak warriors who they really were. It reminded them of what they had been fighting for before the Overmind took them, and it gave them a choice. Across the fleet, the zombie warriors began to remember. Some chose to stay with the Overmind, too far gone to change. But others broke free. They turned their weapons on the Devourer ships, fighting their captors from the inside. The battle turned quickly after that. The Devourer fleet, which had seemed unstoppable, began to tear itself apart. Ships exploded or fled into deep space. Within hours, the threat was over. Jake floated in space near Earth, watching the last of the enemy ships disappear. His armor felt different now, lighter. The voices in his head were quiet, no longer whispering of ancient wars and forgotten battles. Kelly flew up beside him. Her armor was damaged from the fighting, but she was alive. "Is it over?" she asked. Jake looked at Earth, beautiful and safe below them. "This battle is over, but there will be others. There are always others. Will you be ready for them?" Jake thought about it. The armor still gave him power, but it no longer tried to control him. He was still human, still Jake Martinez. But he was also something more now, a protector, a guardian, someone who would stand between his people and the dark. "We will be ready," he said. "All of us. Later, after the celebrations and the funerals and the long talks with government officials, Jake found himself back on Earth. He was sitting on a beach, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors of gold and red. The armor was gone, stored safely until it was needed again. Kelly sat beside him, her hand in his. She was different too after wearing the armor, stronger and faster than before. But she was still Kelly, still the woman who had chosen to fight beside him. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The power?" Jake thought about the question. The armor had made him nearly godlike. He could fly between stars and destroy armies. But it had also nearly cost him his soul. "No," he said finally. "I would rather be human." Above them, human ships patrolled the sky. Not alien technology or ancient weapons, but ships built by human hands with human knowledge. Earth was safe, and it would stay safe because people like Jake and Kelly were willing to protect it. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of things that wanted to hurt or destroy or consume. But it was also full of beauty and hope and the chance to build something better. And sometimes, Jake thought as he watched the first stars appear in the darkening sky, that was enough.